the dream. To build the world's fastest electric motorcycle, take it to the Isle of Man, the toughest, most unforgiving racetrack on the planet, and blow the competition and the skeptics away. In some ways, it's a new dream. The dream of high-tech solutions to global energy problems. The dream of a clean, green world. In other ways, it's a very old dream, one that we all know. The dream of winning.
My name is Mark Neale. I'm a filmmaker and I made Faster. I'm here to talk to you about my new film, Charge, and the one that's soon to appear, we hope, fastest.
The MotoGP Championship. "18 races, 13 countries.
If you can do this, if you can control this, survive this, if you can beat him, and him, and him, and him, stay hungry, stay focused, stay alive, and win again and again and again, then you may be the one.
I came to live here in late '97, and at that time I was doing a lot of music videos, so I was quite a sort of successful music video director, and I'd done TV series, I'd done quite a lot of documentary stuff, and I'd also done music videos, and I'd worked with U2 for 4 years, so I was doing well, and I came to live here, and it was around about the time that the whole, MTV and the whole music business changed. And suddenly, the people didn't make music videos much anymore, and Napster happened, and so at that time I just thought, okay, well, I brought my family out here, I'm gonna just, what can I do? And you had digital filmmaking technology, and suddenly it became possible to make films of any kind much cheaper. You didn't need, 100 grand to make a music video. You could make a whole movie for 10 grand or less or whatever. And so that's when I thought, well, having a documentary background already from TV in Britain, I thought, okay, well, I will just try and make documentaries about stuff that I love. And the first one I did was about a science fiction writer called William Gibson. And I made a documentary called No Maps for These Territories.
Hammered.
It's funny, I walked out of the Matrix last night and went to an ATM and got some money out of my checking account in Vancouver without even using a credit card, just using a bank courtesy card.
I did loads of festivals, and it was in Slam Dance, which is quite a big festival here, and it played around the world. And Gibson's a guy who sold like millions of books, so I thought, this could do okay, but I really, just about made the money back. It cost about 50 grand to make. And so I thought, well, I have to find something that has a bigger audience. And it literally was just like that, thinking, okay, what can I do? What does the technology let you do? And what can I do that has a market? And I've always ridden bikes, and I was a dispatch rider, like I was telling you. I've ridden bikes since I was like 12. And I've always followed bike racing. And I remember going to see, I was watching Barry Sheen on TV, so all that stuff that's in Faster, I watched that race where Kenny Roberts beat Barry Sheen. I remember that was kind of the first race I ever, first time I ever really thought, wow, this is so cool.
Silverstone. And from Woodcote, and look at Barry Sheen doing an absolutely monumental wheelie as the front wheel reared right up and they go down to Cox, lap 1. It's Will Hartog, the lightning starter.
When I left college, I went to live in Spain because I thought I was fed up with being riding bikes in the rain in England. So I went to live in Barcelona, and I lived there for 3 years. And that's what, I learnt Spanish there, but I learnt Catalan as well. And that's the language of Dorna. The people who own MotoGP are based in Barcelona. So after that, I moved out here. You know, I spent time in England, but then I moved out here. And then when I was here, I completely by chance met Ian McLean, who's the son of Bob McLean, and Bob McLean was the partner of Peter Clifford, and those two guys ran the Red Bull Yamaha team. So having followed MotoGP and stuff for years, but never having any access to it in Europe, I met these people here, you know, in Santa Monica, like through my kid, you know, making friends with the granddaughter of Bob McLean, the guy who ran Red Bull Yamaha. And I said, wow, gee, yeah, I would like, we should make a documentary about your team. And so again, it started like that. It's a bit like Michael says. It started with like me talking to this one team, but thinking I want to get in there and I want to make it about, you know, the competition. And then we went to Spain, and I met with Dorna, and I think they thought they were going to meet a Hollywood director, and they met this English bloke who spoke Catalan, and it was kind of odd, but it was good, and that's how it started.
The race never ends. A week after the last Grand Prix of the year, in early November, the teams are out testing for next season. Lap after lap, knees on the ground in the corners, 200 miles an hour down the straights, looking for a little extra speed. They're crazy. They're going to kill themselves. Well, maybe. But what about the buzz? The babes? The money? Week in, week out, riding and crashing and riding and winning, and always faster and faster and faster.
When we were doing Faster, one of the ways that I kind of promoted it to people was by saying, you know, we're going to get you and we're going to get to narrate it, I think, you know, but finally, you know, through a friend of a friend, I got I sent a tape of the rough cut to him, and it literally was like 10 days before we had to finish the film because we were just completely out of time and money, and I got it to him. He was down in Alabama shooting big fish, so this is in 2003, I guess, and he called me back like the next day. He left a message on my home phone impersonating Valentino Rossi saying, "Hey Mark, I see the film is very nice, I like it very fast," and I thought, who is this? And then he said, at the end, he said, "Mark, it's Ewan McGregor, and I really like the film and I'll do the narration."
The MotoGP season runs from April to November, 16 races in 8 months on 5 continents. The locations may change, but it's actually all one and the same place. A town that moves around the world, populated by a couple of thousand highly skilled professionals in the grip of a shared obsession.
We all are just junkies, speed junkies.
I'm lucky to be in this position. I mean, you know, I'm not just lucky. I mean, a lot of it's hard work. But once you get that opportunity, you've got to go for it, you know, because it's such an opportunity. That's what I always thought, is I can't believe I'm doing this, you know. It's really cool. And I'm very lucky to have got that chance. And then you think, well, I don't want to screw it up because a lot of people love this stuff, so I want to try and do a good job.
It's much more comfortable than it looks. It has a rear brake, front brake on the other handlebar, and twist grip throttle, which also twists in the opposite direction to give regenerative braking under the control of how far you twist it. Most of the time I use the regenerative braking. The mechanical brakes are only necessary if there is a need for a rapid, unexpected stop.
Charge started because Michael Sizz got in touch with me. That's how it started, and we figured we could make something. So the whole thing was done on a shoestring the whole way through, on credit cards, on nothing. That film was made for peanuts. And the way that ultimately that we managed to get it finished was by getting some money from the Isle of Man government and a bit of money from private investors and a little bit of money from a sales agent. So it's very, very hard to get these things done. So I think in general, the world is a difficult place for everyone these days, and I've never known it as hard as it is now. On the other hand, it just seemed like such a good story. You know, it's like, you know that like if you have an electric bike race on the Isle of Man is going to piss a lot of people off, because there's nobody like, there is nowhere like the Isle of Man for like hardcore petrol head, gas guzzling, you know, nutcases.
This is the TT. It's recognised throughout the world. They come to see hard men race hard motorbikes, not piss about on battery-powered scrap.
The last thing they want is pissy little electric bikes going around, you know, at less than 170 miles an hour. So you knew that was a good story, because you know that these electric bike guys, half of whom are really, you know, they're not conventional racers at all. They're weirdo eccentrics, you know, in a good way. They're very interesting people. But the mixture of the eccentric guys, especially the English people, a guy called Cedric Lynch, who you know, with hardcore petrolheads on the Isle of Man, and then just the general mixture of other kind of weirdo electric bike teams was you knew it was a good story, and this was going to be the first time it had ever happened.
End of January, Adrian came in and said he'd like to borrow a frame. I said, "What's your idea?" And he said, "Well, he's talking to some guys and they're thinking about doing an electric bike."
I got together with a guy here locally, just completely by chance. And then Adrian from here at Motosys contacted us.
And to get the bike to the level that we want, to the standard that I want, within the time frame that we have, this was going to be living hell. These sketches were probably done over a 2-day period. The minute we had the idea that, hey, this is something maybe we should do, I came in and started sketching the overall bike. Here's a suitcase idea, here's this battery idea, some of the overall linkage ideas, where controllers are going, where motors are going. Electric
cars were originally created for women, because women couldn't crank the gas engine cars. They weren't strong enough. So electric vehicles always had this kind of woman association. So they were never cool. And no, I was not interested in them, but I was very interested when they start talking about, these things are going to 150 miles an hour, and you know this is, at some point, this stuff is going to arrive and affect us all, and maybe be good. So I was interested.
Well, at the end of the day, I just think people get carried away with it. You get all these green folk, don't you, talking about, you know, carbon footprint and all that sort of shit. So the electrics, obviously coming from fossil fuels, we're burning the fossil fuels directly in our tanks. And these boys, you know, they're having to burn fossil fuels to make electric, to be able to put the electric in these bikes.
You could charge these with solar panels, you could charge them with windmills. There's so many ways you could charge these things without using petrol.
But even with that argument, which I agree to a point, of course, that's a reality, right? You're burning petrol somewhere else. Even that way, here we're talking 93% efficiency.
So I was trying to weave in, you know, multiple teams, and I always knew, okay, we've got Sis on the one hand, then you've got the Anglo-Indian outfit, Cedric Lynch and Agni, who are like the perfect opposite, because they live in a shed in a little garden in London, and Sis owns his complex in Portland. And he hated it that we filmed him failing completely.
Yeah, I'm sure that wasn't.
Yeah, it was, no, he expected to win. And if he'd won, it would have been a really boring film, I think, you know, so there was that as well. But that made it hard to get it finished, because at the time, you know, the idea was that, you know, if Michael did well the first year, he had investors who might be interested, and then they weren't, and so, you know, the phone went very dead for months, and it was very hard to get that film finished.
From the director of the critically acclaimed Faster comes the follow-up, Fastest.
It is truly a sequel. It picks up from where, I mean, obviously, The Doctor, the Tornado and the Kentucky Kid happened in 2005, but Fastest tells the story pretty much from Rossi going to Yamaha in 2004 to now. And, you know, so it is, yeah, it's like very much the other half, if you like. And we went to, I don't know, 10 races or something, and went to Rossi's hometown, and so, you know, I really, again, went for it. Like, just went for everything I could, and often was on my own doing stuff, you know, and most of it was quite a small crew, but we were able to use Dorna's material, which now is very, very, very good. And so part of my job was spending probably a total of 3 weeks in Barcelona editing like all the stuff that I wanted to use, and actually being able to go into their archives and actually pull specific shots. Not just get a race program, but go through every camera, every take of every session, which is a recipe for insanity. I mean, I sat there for, 10 hours a day for days and days and days.
The aura of invincibility of Valentino's has been broken. Now, can he repair that?
Fastest.
So all the material is there to for a really, really good film. Different in some ways to Faster, and we'll all know in a couple of months if it's going to be finished or not.
It's moments on a bike when everything just comes together. You connect with the bike completely, and just the track, everything flows. I mean, you could ride 10 to 40 laps and just hit the same mark every time. Because when it's on, and it's the greatest feeling.
There are 4 films, I suppose you could say now, if you include Fastest, and they've all had a similar, a similar odd and rather difficult thing, and it's only because you just desperately want to do it that you do it. You really, really have to want to do it, and I think it's worth it, because it's just like, if we don't make good films, who's going to make good films about motorbike racing?